Hi,
Hello,
I'm Julian.
I'm Tom.
We are Team Binge. We are here to talk about Silo Season 2, Episode 8. This is The Book of Quinn, which we've been just looking for forever. We've been searching all the other books. We've been searching the iPads, obviously in public spaces, because, well, let's not go down that line yet. But, Tom, we're working towards the end of this one. This show has 2 more seasons after this one and 2 more episodes after this one. How'd you feel, episode 8?
I felt okay about it. I still felt like Silo 18 is a bit of a slog. The mystery we're finally starting to get into a little bit, which I appreciate, of the Salvador Quinn-ness of it all. I thought that was kind of thrown on us, but at least we're making some headways with that. But I just get so annoyed by not getting enough Juliet. And all the cuts that they do to her silo are a minute at best. And then it's just like you go through the whole episode, and it would be so much more impactful, I think, if they spend more time with Juliet and really showing the struggle and what she's going through, as opposed to quick cuts to her and then ending in a big cliffhanger on that side.
Sure, that's fair. Now, let me ask you this. In the books at this point, is she still the main character throughout book 1?
She is through book 1, and then I think there's quite a bit of I'm not sure entirely when the books happen, but we get so much more of Solo. And when they kind of like teased a little bit in the previously on about like the 2 bodies that were in front of Solo's sub-vault, I'm like, oh cool, maybe we're gonna get a backstory, but we still get nothing.
Right.
I guess he's presumed dead at this point.
So we have not talked about this yet, and I think it's funny that that's exactly where you went, because I was struggling with, I'm enjoying the show. I think it's worth watching. I like talking about it, but I do find it is a little bit more work than entertainment. And so when I got to that mindset where I was like, great, I've got to watch Silo and take notes, I was like, okay, what is it about the show that is turned to a point where I'm more annoyed with it than I am looking forward to watching it? And that's probably it's certainly not being very forgiving of the show, which is perfectly entertaining. But I'm looking at our outline, and if our outline is, 30 pages, normal outline for us, 30 pages, like a page and a half is Silo 17. And since the show grew on us through, Holden and then Juliet, it feels like we're spending all of our time in 18 with characters I don't necessarily have any emotional attachment to. I love Bernard. I think Tim Robbins is doing all of the acting, as I've said before, and he's a great villain. I enjoy Billings, but other than that, it's like, hey, we're going to give you 10 minor characters that you don't really love, and we're going to spend 46 minutes on them, and then maybe, I don't know, my math is now all wrong. It's maybe 53 minutes with them, and then 4 minutes with Juliet, and not even Solo in this episode. So that's where I'm landing on this. Now, I've got to think, as we go into like season 3 and 4, Juliet comes back in a bigger way, and that's how they got this like signed off. But if they killed her at the end of this season, I also wouldn't be surprised. But I don't know who would star in the show, because I don't feel like Bernard's going to carry 4 seasons total. But that's my complaint in terms of we're spending most of our time with people I don't love.
I'm 100% with you, and obviously not giving away too much from the books in terms of who they're focusing on. Many of these characters, I think I mentioned before, like Sims is not heavily featured in the book. Even Bernard is not heavily featured in the book. But I think you got an actor like Tim Robbins, you're going to want to milk him for all he's worth and have him be a bigger villain than he was in the novels. But I'm with you, like the Walker, the Shirley, the Knox. Like I kind of like Lucas as a character more so than maybe some of the other ancillary, but all these other people I just don't feel nearly as invested in. And it's a shame that we're not spending more time with Rebecca Ferguson and Juliet. And I get it, because there's only so much, I guess, drama you can do there if you're not going to tell Solo's story, and maybe they're saving that for next season. I don't know.
I think Solo's dead, Tom. I think they killed him. I think
well, you can still do backstory. I mean, they obviously imply that he's dead here too, but he was such an interesting character that if that's really where they end it with him, that would be quite, I think, a letdown.
I think Solo is no-mo. You know what I mean? You know
No.
what I mean? I didn't even write that one down, Tom. That was on the cuff. Oh, I'm so proud of that. I should bring my kid in to tell him that joke. I bet he'd love it.
He just
Anyways,
stands next to him and goes, "Hey-o."
Solo is no-mo. Hey-o! All right, let's dive into Silo 18. We can still have fun. And once again, my general enjoyment for the show is still there, but a bit more of a slog than necessary. Yeah. But I still appreciate Graham Yost bringing this to my eyeballs. So let's dive into Bernard going into the old camera room. He always looks so like pensive and angry, and he's got that terrible, like almost bowl cut bangs that's completely white. He just, I don't know. I love Tim Robbins. I just watched Top Gun and enjoyed his work in Top Gun again.
Nice. I don't think he's going to the camera room here, right? I think this is where he's sneaking away into the utilities area where he's
going to go huff some paint. Yeah, I know that game. Anyways, the good old days. Can't run a silo without taking the edge off, you know? Some Sharpie markers. Okay, So we have Bernard doing Bernard things. We have Shirley writing Cooper's name on the down deep.
Who's Cooper?
Who's Cooper? I literally, my wife was like, "Oh, look there." I was like, "I don't care about Cooper. No one cares about Cooper. Who's Cooper?" Anyways, she very sad. Once again, this is kind of the thing where the show's like, audience, like Shirley's going through something. We miss Cooper, and I'm just like, no, we're not, and we don't care. Move on. I appreciate that you can write and paint. You know. Mm-hmm. She joins Billings at a meal. He's all alone. Everyone in the Down Deep is either extremely racist or they don't like their sheriff. I won't make a judgment call. But they're all giving Billings the evil eye while he's hiding out down below. She gives him this pep talk where she's like, you need to be helping us, and like you can't just hide out down here. Are you even still the sheriff? Mm-hmm. And the one flaw in Billings' character is like his fallback to the pact, and I get that they have made him kind of the go by the book guy, literally go by the book guy. Mm-hmm. But I think we've seen some flaws in that. And Billings he's seen a picture of Georgia, Tom. You know, like he can leave the pact a little bit, right?
I think from his perspective, he realizes, yes, that the pact is flawed, but without it, they are just running around like animals. Like they need some sort of guiding principles to help keep the silo afloat. And I think he appreciates that and is trying to, I don't know, say to Shirley that he'll let some of these things go, but we still have to have some semblance of order. Sure.
That's fair. I appreciate the motivational. Here's what I liked in this is just Billings she's like, you're hiding out down here, and him kind of squirming under the, I guess I am kind of avoiding conflict by just hanging out in the cafeteria.
Yeah, I'm still sheriff unless somebody tells me no. So if I just avoid somebody that can tell me no, I'm always going to be the sheriff.
Right. We have Lucas searching for the documents of Quinn. He heads over to the judge's apartment. There's some judicial guys here who... These actors are like, we get 10 seconds. We're going to be the best at being actors. And they have like a back and forth. And the guy's like, I can see color. Like, this was very funny. We have not seen these judicial guys before, right? These were new.
No, I think they're new. And even this concept of the blue card, which they make such a big deal of, like, man, do you see the color of that card? I'm like, oh, okay. I just walk around with blue cards and you do whatever you want. Right. But I do like Lucas getting this newfound authority and kind of stepping into it in this episode. It's kind of fun.
We have not seen these ID cards before in the show, right? This was something a writer came up in the writer room for this moment.
Mm-hmm.
I
don't think so.
Wonderful. We do some code breaking. I love a good code breaking scene.
Yeah, montage, baby. I mean, I feel... Did you get confused by this? Because I thought we ended that last episode of, like, the Book of Quinn is the Wizard of Oz. But... So I thought he was going to use the Wizard of Oz as the book to break all this. But that was just another book? Where does that Wizard of Oz come in? What did I miss?
Yeah, most certainly.
Okay.
I mean, we ended an episode with them searching for a book Bernard being like, oh, the book is here, and him pulling out Wizard of Oz. And then the next episode is him being like, I need to find a book. And when he finds the pact later, I was like, wait, what are we doing? Like,
Yeah, because the other people gave him another book, and he said, no, I don't need this one. And then I was super confused by the book. I get where they ended of like his copy of the pact, but I was flummoxed.
Sure. Which is, I mean, it just comes to the point where Team Binge, we have always been pro, just burn all the books. Then you wouldn't have these types of confusion in shows. Tom, you've always been a big proponent for burning books.
That's a Salvador Coin in me.
Yes, especially the old classics. You just only new stuff here, all right?
Exactly.
I only want to read stuff that are made by TikTokers and podcasters that are bad at writing. Anyways, we have we had a real, I don't know if like, I guess the pressure is just wearing and like the responsibility of Carla McLean being taken. We have a real turnaround from Walker. Walker's been kind of the like staunch proponent and pillar that we can all turn to. In this one, she like loses her compass a bit and starts to crumbling. They're having this conference where these guys are laying out a perfectly normal plan to go get like supplies for medical. And all of a sudden she's like, no, we don't need bandages. We need Carla. And you're like, wait, does Carla heal people? Can she stop me from bleeding out? Because I'm pretty sure I'd rather have a bandage than Carla. But Walker was like someone who won something and just turned the argument their way. And it was poor negotiating on Walker's part, I felt.
Well, she just keeps screaming like no buts and screams at everybody. And like this whole time, I'm like, why does everybody in this room need Walker's go ahead? Like, is Walker's not the de facto leader? Like, I know she is looked up to from other people, but I don't understand why they're pushing so hard about her getting on board with this.
Right. And she's, I don't know, she's flip-flopped a couple of times, but you felt it was a deeper play. Now it just feels like she's distraught and confused. And understandably, her, divorced spouse 25 years ago got thrown in prison. I gotta be honest, Tom, most people that had a spouse they divorced 25 years ago are looking for that person to be thrown in prison. So I'm a little bit confused. And
what's the opposite of common law? Uncommon law marriage? Is that what this is?
Uncommon law marriage. I once again, I mean, they should both be thrown in prison for going against the good book, right? For getting that divorce in the first place. They should have just died together angry. Anyways, I guess all of this comes down to I like Walker as a character. I did not care for, and ultimately the turn during this episode, I did not like. And I understand. Shows are not going to give me everything I want from a character, but this felt, how do I describe it? How do you describe it when a character has been doing something and then they do something different? In characteristic, maybe? Is that the word I'm looking for, Tom?
Flippity floppity.
That's true. The flippity floppity of the character. I don't know. I didn't care for this.
I agree. This is not a bookism either, too. Like the idea of Walker kind of flipping. This is all new for the show.
I love Howie Hugh or Hugh Howie somewhere is just like to his friends, like, that wasn't in my book. That sucks, and it wasn't in my book,
What,
guys.
you didn't like it? I didn't do that. It's like a George R. R. Martin thing. What, you didn't like the ending? Okay, I'll rewrite it.
Don't complain to me. That wasn't in my book. My book's better. Speaking of people that are getting things written that they don't like, she gets an email that really like spurs her into... I didn't know what this was. She surely did not think she was going to fix a pump, right? This was very weird for her to get this email and be like, I'm going on a mission to go fix a pump in the up, tippy top. Didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I don't think she knew what exactly was going to happen, but I think she was smart enough to realize this was the result of her turning on her camera.
She seemed very surprised when Bernard was there and very scared. Yeah, like... like Dwight and Michael Scott. My bad. I'm getting my Michaels. Not singer-songwriter George Michael either. All right. We have this power struggle happening with Sims and Armundsen. Once again, I don't think that's his name, but it's so close.
I looked it up. There's no R in it. Amundsen, Amundsen, is the casting for him. So I don't know how to pronounce it, but
You know I hate when you correct me with the correct thing. Please don't. It's Sims and Arminson, all right? And Sims is like asking him questions, and Arminson's like, listen, man, I don't report to you. When you were in this job, did you report to the judge? And
Who ordered the code red?
who ordered the code red? Exactly. I just don't care. Like, I love Common. Give me more Common. I think this actor that plays Arminson is actually quite good at being like kind of a undermining head of judicial, but I just don't find this at all compelling, and I got confused when Camille got involved once again without telling Sims. You know, I don't know. It just is this show all about just broken marriages? Because if you boil it down to it, it's Sims and Camille struggling with each other. It's Walker and McLean struggling with other, and it's Billings and Mrs. Billings struggling with each other, not showing each other pictures of Georgia. I really feel like this whole thing is just like, hey, spouses, like, communicate better, and your life will, you know. I refuse to take this advice, by the way,
of course.
Just in my own.
Of course.
Yeah.
I still don't, and we'll get to, I guess, a little bit later, but like Sims and Camille, I almost feel Sims tried with Amundsen to get him to open up about what Lucas is doing, and then he probably told Camille to give it a shot with him too, because I guess Camille had a relationship with him back in the judicial days. I don't know what. So I'm still assuming that Sims and Camille are together on what they're doing, since they had that pep talk last episode.
No, because when Arminson and Sims talk later on, and Arminson like actually gives him answers, he goes, stop sending your wife to like do these things for you. And Sims clearly, Common, the actor, has that look on his face. The director went, hey, look like your wife did something and didn't tell you about it. And Common's like, I've got it. And then he also is like, Watson IBM, it'll solve all your problems.
One campaign that guy did, they're all about it.
I love it.
I don't think I picked
love
up
AI
on that.
so much, Tom. I mean, IBM Watson could sit in this chair and talk into this mic every day of the week.
I don't think I picked up on that glance from Sim. So if that is the case, then yeah, again, like you just had this big pep talk as a couple. What's going on?
Damn, it wasn't a glance. It was like a pan in shot, and they did the dun 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 music. Like, it was pretty. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'm very rarely wrong. You know who else is rarely wrong? Watson, IBM, Tom.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Imagine what's possible when learning doesn't get in the way of life. At Capella University, our game-changing FlexPath learning format lets you set your own deadlines so you can learn at a time and pace that works for you. It's an education you can tailor to your schedule. That means you don't have to put your life on hold to pursue your professional goals. Instead, enjoy learning your way and earn your degree without missing a beat. A different future is closer than you think with Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu.
Lucas is running around. He is harassing these sheep herders that literally create the wool. Tom, where are all the sheep? Where are these sheep roaming on hillsides?
They've shown at one point, like when they go to the orchard or the farm or whatever, there's been shots where they've shown, like, as their camera's panning down the silo, you can see like cows in the background and other livestock. So there's specific levels dedicated to them.
Okay, that's fair. Lucas, and we don't know what he's doing, but I guess these people are the descendants of Salvador Quinn, and they've really held on to this negative Tom, could you tell me one thing about your great-grandparent right now, if I put you on the spot?
Ooh, they were probably in a war.
And we don't know which side. So
no idea.
you could have some things that you're ashamed of in your background. In fact, I'm going to go out on a limb and say we probably both do. But these people feel so bad for the Salvador Quinn gentleman that I don't feel like the rest of the silo knows who this is. Do you get... It feels like this name was thrown out as a secret, and then as we've gone on, it's been like more people are like, oh yeah, Salvador Quinn, we all know about him, right?
Well, didn't they try to mention him as like, a disgrace from 140 years ago, and he was the one that couldn't quell the last rebellion, but then we find out here that that's not the case. Yeah, I don't know, and what I get bummed about with the Salvador Quinn bit is how it's all just being shoehorned to be able to create mystery for this season, and wasn't any sort of setup or anything last season.
Yeah.
Because last season we got all this old flame keepers and other backstory stuff that you thought would kind of come up here, but we've heard none of that. So it's just kind of goofy that they didn't try to put this in season 1 unless they kind of came up with this on the fly, which is, I don't know that's kind of what I'm picking up here.
I'm sorry, Tom. Are we not still keeping a flame open? Are we not still flame keepers? I thought you and I took the flame keeper oath. Every time we start this, I light this candle. I literally have almost burnt down the house multiple times. Are you not keeping the flame in the same way that I'm keeping the flame?
I'm sorry, no.
I love the idea that it feels like they talk about these sheep like the only reason they have them is for the wool to clean the camera.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't think we clean it all that often to need... Is it just one sheep? You know, I don't think the lifespan of a sheep is 140 years. So,
well, they mentioned making stuff for like the uptoppers. I'm assuming they're like
blankets.
Making the fine wool and blankets for everybody else. But yeah, I like at least the nod to wool, the name of the first book. I mean, if nothing else, I kind of heard the word wool. I'm like, oh, cool. That's the name of the first book.
That's the only reason they did it. That was the one moment. Lucas comes in pretty hot in this. He's like, listen, I've got this identification, and I'm going to take all your books, papers, and relics, and I'm a bad guy now from the mines that don't exist.
Well, it's like you mentioned earlier about Sims giving a look where, like, clearly he didn't know Camille was doing something behind his back. Like, there couldn't be a more clear look with all these people in this room about Lucas like, hey, you guys have a book? And everybody's like, oh, they're like looking at each other like, oh yeah, we definitely have a book, but don't say anything out loud.
No, we don't. It's like when your kid is 2 and they lie and they're like, they've got all the blue popsicle on their face, and you're like, did you steal a blue popsicle? Yeah, no, they clearly know something is up, and we don't sit around very long before the sheep herder follows Lucas out to talk to him. But I don't know. The sins of the father thing that they're doing here is a cool concept, but also poorly done. And then I don't really get a read as Lucas as a character. He's been like sent to the mines by Bernard for a day. Now Bernard made him his shadow. Now he's like going hard at people with his blue badge, and he's really searching for this. I guess he just believes Bernard when Bernard says, hey, what you're doing is more important than any rebellion.
Well, I think it's also just very inquisitive nature of him, right? Like we got that in season 2 or season 1, looking at the stars or anything else. So being able to kind of get this mystery to try to unravel, I think he's very much enjoying what he's doing. But yeah, he comes at it clearly the wrong way in this first sequence where he kind of comes at it as bad cop, later comes in as good cop, and it worked much better for him.
It always works bad cop, Tom. As someone who's been a parent for a while, if you both come in at the kids, bad cop, they stop talking to you real quick, and then they move out young, you know?
Yeah, smart.
Anyways, let's hop to the conversation with Bernard. Bernard's like, let me tell you about Salvador Quinn. I know that everyone thinks he did a terrible job, but in reality, he did a great job. He saved the silo. Before every 20 years we had a rebellion. After Salvador Quinn severed our history, we've gone 140 years without a rebellion. So everything you know is a lie, and I have all these cool secrets. I'm Tim Robbins. I was in Top Gun.
This annoyed me so much because, like, he clearly is putting Lucas on this mission to find everything about Salvador Quinn and what's going on. Yet he has this huge nugget of information that he neglects to share with his shadow to do all this research. Like, it was just comical.
Right. I don't know. Lucas is like, I've been looking for the Salvador Quinn book all day. And Bernard's like, I gave it to you. It was The Wizard of Oz. Do you not remember last episode? I put it in your hands. And Lucas is like, man, I really got to find this book. And Bernard's like, am I a ghost? Why are we not communicating right now? I don't know.
We do get a big reveal here, though, right? Where he talks about the idea of them going 140 years as opposed to the 20-year rebellion cycle was because they're putting the stuff in the water, right? And I remember clocking this in season 1. This was before I read the book, where they did multiple kind of close-up shots of people pouring water into a glass, like from the tap. And I was always kind of questioning it last season in the pod. So it was kind of cool to see this make a comeback and see, yes, it's the water that everybody in the silo is drinking that is making them forget a lot of their past.
Okay, so I interpreted this in a different way. I interpreted this as when he severed history, he put something in the water. We'll call it forget-me-not, like Job and Arrested. That's when he put something in the water that made that like generation forget and not pass things on. I didn't get the sense that everyone in the silo now has like memory loss issues.
Well, I feel like it's been hinted at with Sims and Kennedy about saying, hey, like I got a drug that can make you forget a certain amount of time. Like, what's to prevent them? Like, if we know they're putting something in the water to have people forget, put a low dosage or something in that where people then don't have that memory for their history.
Okay. I see what you're saying. I don't know. I took it as a different way, but listen, if this show in an episode was like, we've never put anything in the water, I'd be like, okay, I got it, show. Thank you. You're just going to continue to lie to me. Anyways, to your point, during this conversation, it sounds like Bernard knows everything, so I don't really, like his urgency to have Lucas find things out. I don't know if this is just a test why he's doing it this way, or if this is just like bad TV writing.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I think it can go a lot of different directions, and we'll see where we go. I don't think Bernard knows everything, is the way I'm kind of taking this. Like, he does need this guy's help.
He needs some of it. But as soon as Lucas learns something, Bernard's like, I already knew that, which is a really annoying person to be around.
I still hang out with you.
Oh, wow. Okay. That
Shots
cut
fired.
deeper. That cut deeper than it should have, if I'm being honest. We have Kennedy and Kathleen Billings hanging out. She has, I guess, provided him food. He's still on the mend. The soup looks delicious. He talks about being shown the page from the Georgia book. And we get this, once again, the camera's doing a lot of work. We get the sense that Billings did not share with his wife this page. And this comes into play later. Once again, I think the goal here of this show is just be like, hey, married people, communicate with your spouse. Or, if you're in a relationship, communicate. Because then people's feelings don't get hurt and everyone gets to see a picture of Georgia. Mm-hmm. All right. We have Camille and Armandson. They're arguing like a married couple. And she's like trying to not manipulate, but she is trying to relate to him as someone who used to be in judicial and understands the job. And this leads to her asking him to try and figure out what Lucas is doing. And she's also like explaining, hey, Sims is like, he's got the silo's best interest at hand. Bernard doesn't. Once again, I don't know what Camille and Sims, if it's just survival of the silo or if it's ruling the silo. I don't know what their ultimate goal is, but I didn't get the sense that this was sanctioned by Sims, that Camille is working on her own.
Okay. Yeah, and I don't understand why this would really turn him. Like, she mentions, I guess he's got a kid on the way, so this is for the kids or the good of the silo. But he even mentions as much of like, hey, if Bernard finds out that I'm going behind his back, this is not going to end well for me. Yet he still does. Like, I don't know what comes from this conversation outside of some sort of forgotten loyalty to Sims, but he already had the opportunity to talk directly to Sims and if he felt he owed him something, would have done it there. I just didn't feel like this conversation did enough to warrant the mass amount of information that Arminson drops at him later.
Right. Well, I think there's something to be said about Tom. Tom, have you ever been carjacked? It's like when you're being carjacked and the carjacker's like, hey, man, you got kids? And you're like, yeah, I've got. And he's like, oh, Asia, yeah, give me your keys, get out. Don't look at me. Did you see my face? No. You feel better about that experience just because you're relating on a human level. And I think that's what she's trying to do here. I think this is just a little bit of...
That checks out.
Yeah. Anyways, the next thing we get to talk about is Walker and Bernard's weird conversation. Tom, do you want to do surprised noise when she walks in and it's Bernard?
Whoa.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You nailed it.
He was just sitting there in the door, like right behind the light, so it like perfectly silhouetted him for hours.
There's that scene in 30 Rock where she meets Jack Donaghy in the like art museum, and he starts talking to her before he turns around, and she's like, "How did you know it was me?" And he's like, "To be honest, I talked to 3 other people before it was you." Like, this is kind of the same thing. This guy was just like sitting in the dark, and then I imagine someone else came in and turned on the lights, and he was like, "Walk! Oh, you're not Walker. Get out! Like, what are you doing? I'm waiting for someone." And they're like, "Do you want the light on?" He's like, "No, it's better. Turn it off. Turn it off."
The one thing I did like about this room, did you notice anything about this room that was familiar?
It's filled with pumps and motors. Yes.
Yeah, this is the water pump room. Like, it is an exact replica of where Juliet went to turn on that pump.
Yes. Well, I don't want real life and podcast life to touch, but I recognize the equipment almost immediately, Tom.
Yeah.
They get into a negotiation. I find Bernard, when he is this sinister, just so much fun. And by that, I mean, I hope he dies, like, terribly, honestly, in the show. But I do enjoy him as a villain. Honestly, if whoever's doing the next Bond series doesn't look at Tim Robbins for, like, some sort of Bond villain, then they're doing it wrong. But he's like, tell me what I want to know or I'll torture Carla. And I'm going to go into a little bit of detail. The first thing I'm going to do is give her a hit on her credit report. She's going to have to be on customer service with a cell phone company she never was with before. And that's the type of torture we get to deal with.
Your reality bleeding in.
Yeah.
But this was very brutal. Like, we've seen Bernard have more of like a tactical approach, but he's seemingly done with that. Like, he's not messing around anymore.
He doesn't negotiate with Carla when he talks to her. He's not negotiating with Walker here. And in the end, all he wants, Tom, is just someone to whisper secrets. Whisper secrets. Be a busy bee, as Commodus says in Gladiator. You know?
He needs a mole. It's mole time, baby.
Mole time. In the down deep, I need a mole. So, did you think Walker... Do you think Walker caved quickly on this? And I've never been put in this situation, so it's a little bit difficult. But like we're really pushing this Walker and Carla. Like, is it guilt? Is it love? Like, what's causing this?
I don't know. Like, I get the idea of, yes, you want to be able to help your significant other, but in this instance, if you really think that Bernard does not have the Silo's best interest at heart, and he is conniving and doing these things that are going to murder a bunch of innocent people in Mechanical that you're also very close with, it seems silly for her to go turncoat so quickly.
So quickly. Tom, I'm going to let you know that if they ever capture you, I don't negotiate with terrorists. So
you should immediately. Get me out of there.
No. I don't think you understand. No, I'm giving you up. And I'm going to be like, listen, I'll tell you all the things he knows, but I want you to keep him and torture him anyways.
As long as you can.
As long as you can. Listen, I'm going to turncoat, but I still want you to torture him. That would be my opening line. Can we have both, please?
Don't let him know.
Can we have both, please? And you can tell him I did this.
That's the dagger right there.
So we have, you're welcome. We have Sims and Arminson meeting, and this is where Arminson's like, hey, Camille, talk to me. This is what Lucas is doing. He's looking for a book from Salvador Quinn. And Sims is like, cool, you're going to keep being my secrets guy. And Arminson's like, no, sir, I am not. Had these guys heard of Salvador Quinn? Do you get the sense that that name meant something to the both of them? as this conversation was happening.
No, I didn't get that sense. I felt like when Amundsen says that for the first time, that was the first he had ever heard of it. And I think the same with Sims.
Okay.
But this is just another one of the instances where I get a little bit annoyed about the show coming up with a secret and then immediately giving it to the character that needs to have the information. I feel like I just found it in one of these earlier episodes of the season, and now I can't help but it's just going too quickly with every sort of secret being passed on to everybody immediately.
Yeah, it feels like the show wants me to care about a building power struggle between Sims and Bernard, and that at some point Amundsen is going to be in the middle, and he's going to have all the judicial guys, and Sims is going to be like, got to choose between me or Bernie. And Bernard's like, don't call me Bernie. And then, Amundsen's going to do the thing where he looks like he's going to join Bernard, but then he's going to join Sims. That's what it feels like it's all building towards. If that scene happens, you owe me $20. That's the bet we just made.
We'll put a pin in it.
Wonderful. Billings and his wife are in a fight because he failed to communicate and he didn't show her. When he came into this room and there was some silent anger happening, I was like, Billings, it's an ambush. Get out, buddy. She's got you. I've walked into that room before. You got to just leave. Don't ask what's wrong. Just go. And she is very upset that he did not share the Georgia book with her. And she is like, oh, the world is so beautiful outside. Why wouldn't you show me the picture? And Billings is like, listen, I have books with a lot of pictures I don't share with you. I don't think you want me to. And she's like, what type of books? And he's like, I'm going to leave now. And I don't know. This was so then we see the Georgia page and people cry. And they're great at crying. And I'm always amazed when actors can make themselves cry.
It was very impressive. Yeah. Actor playing Paul Billings here, just, all kudos. Daytime Emmy. But I liked this. I liked the back and forth and the continued conflict we see inside of Paul trying to figure out what to do, because he just doesn't know the right thing to do. His life was much easier when he just had a book to follow and essentially just hold people accountable to it. And now it's all kind of crumbling around him, and he was kind of holding these secrets from his wife. And now that he brings it up with her, he's got somebody, as close to his wife that he can kind of confide in and try to figure out how to solve this problem together. Maybe they're going to be the one shining light marriage that's going to figure it all out.
Yeah. So the lesson here is if you have something illegal, share it with your spouse, because a husband and wife cannot be arrested for the same crime. I learned that from George Blue Sr. I've got the worst attorneys.
Kroger Delivery has one mission: to deliver the freshest food right to your door. That's why our drivers are pros. Our trucks are refrigerated. And when it comes to low prices, we always deliver. With $20 off your first order of $75 or more, there's no better time to get in on the action. Mission accomplished. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
At Sierra, you'll always find apparel, footwear, and gear for 20 to 60% less than department and specialty store prices. But right now, it's clearance time, so you can save even more on everything you need to get active and outside. Visit your local Sierra store today.
All right, Lucas, he goes back to the softer approach and goes back to the sheep herding family. Can we call them the sheep herders? What do they have a name? It's like Pembroke or something like that.
Yeah. But sheep herders goes off the tongue much better.
Mr. and Mrs. Sheepherder, he says to them. He says, hey, I'm sorry that I flashed my badge. Turns out your ancestor, Salvador Quinn, he was a hero, and he saved the silo, and you guys should all be proud. These people are like, oh, thank you for bringing us this great news. What? Like, you carry all that like generational trauma, and then out of nowhere, some guy you don't know is like, "Hey, actually, your ancestor was a hero," and you're like, "Oh, this is great news. Thank you, sir."
Well, he did have a blue card. You always trust people that have a blue card. But they also
fair.
mentioned that Judge Meadows, like, because he asks about the book and everything, and he's like, "Oh, Judge Meadows asked for the same thing before she was." But didn't Judge Meadows also say that Salvador Quinn was like a good guy? So didn't this family kind of already know this? Why do they need it to be rehashed with another guy they don't know?
I don't know, Tom. They say sheep have short memories. Maybe sheep herders do too. I don't know.
Be a goldfish.
Yeah. This all of a sudden turns into, okay, now we need to find Quinn's copy of the Pact. And I mean, honestly, Tom, was that Wizard of Oz, was that just Wicked advertising? Were you right on that? Because
I don't know.
it
Might have been.
seems inconsequential now. Like, what is going on here? What
don't
book
get it.
are we trying to find?
Well, and what book did they hand him that then gave him the idea for going to find the other book? Like, because they clearly went to a thing in the wall. They pulled a piece of paper, then pulled out 2 books, handed it to him, and then he immediately hands it back or leaves it. I didn't understand the process.
I don't know. For a show based on a book, this show doesn't understand books or how to use them in shows. I don't know. It was
Listen,
very
maybe we're
strange.
missing something. If you know what was going on here, reach out to us. teambingepodcast@gmail.com, please.
Oh, Tom, I don't think anyone can explain the booking of it all. No, sir. We have this mechanical group that is going on this mission to get medical supplies, and I looked at the group, didn't recognize any of them, and I was like, oh, it's gonna go poorly. They didn't put Knox on this team, they didn't put Shirley on this team. I just wrote all red shirts. They're all going down, and
Yes.
sure enough, captured. This we have a quick cut where Bernard takes Walker to see Carla, and he's like, I told you I'd let you see her. You saw her. He shuts the visor. And he's like, now you're going to be my ears and eyes. If you cooperate, you'll be united. You'll be reunited.
And you can't, like, the way he even says reunited, it's like ... in death. Like, it was so menacing. Like, how did she not see this?
It almost felt like Bernard, like, wanted to lean in and be like, in death. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, I don't think you're picking up what I'm putting down here. But
I'm laying it on pretty thick.
you remember when I said reunited? I meant in death. Like, did you get it? It was such a great villain, my man. Such a great villain. And he's like, oh, and also, in order to be reunited, you need to turn your camera on in the workshop. The camera in her workshop is a camera, right? It's not like disguised as anything. It's a camera.
Well, I mean, they made this whole big deal of Juliet finding it in season 1, and then I guess once you found it, you can't unsee it because she found it behind like a mirror, where these are just, literal cameras on the side of rooms. Like, you figured you would ask questions about what that is, but it's not, doesn't have the big bright red light on it that when she first connected it to had.
Yeah.
So maybe they at least turned that down.
She
so
put
it's
a
not
piece of
as
tape over
obvious.
it. Like
Yeah.
the check engine light in a car. She just put the tape over the red light.
Yep,
Well,
fixed.
it's kind of like later when Shirley shows up and Shirley's like, "Oh, the mission didn't go well, Walk. I can't believe we've been given up. This is incredible." And Walker's like, "Oh, yeah. That is pretty bad. Who do you think gave you up?" And she's like pointing at the camera. Like, Walker should give Shirley a heads up. There's a way to do this without just like completely abandoning the mechanical team so that they give up all their secrets in your shop. Just put a sign outside that says,
Yeah.
"Hey, there's a camera on in here. Like, let's talk in code." I don't
Well,
know.
Bernard tries to kind of tell her, hey, don't do that kind of stuff because I still do have eyes and ears down there that you don't know about. So I don't know. But I'm with you. Like, she could probably still confide in Shirley because, Shirley's not a snitch here. But I mean, from Shirley's standpoint, how do you not suspect Walker, right? Walker just made this big spiel about we can't do anything but go find Carla. She mysteriously goes somewhere that you already questioned her about, and then she comes back and said it was nothing. Like, how are you not suspecting her? I think it's silly. Maybe she will as a character in the next episode or two.
Sure. The last thing to talk about in Silo 18 before we leave it, hopefully forever, is that Lucas finds the Pact copy. And man, there's nothing like watching a guy. This would be like Tom, if you set up a camera and you put some cool music and watched us play Wordle, it's like, this is not compelling television.
It's almost like decoding misdirects where he's like trying to spell it out. It does work. He's crossing it off. And then as he leans back, he has that epiphany. He's like, oh, there are letters underlined on this page, and he's spelling it all out. Like, it was kind of silly to me, and it didn't have the impact that I think the show wanted, at least on me.
I hate to be that guy, but if paper's so scarce, maybe instead of crossing everything out and moving on, you erase, what's going on here?
Fair point.
All right, so he figures out the message, Tom. The decoding of things, as we found out during that Lord and Miller show, is your job. So what does it come down to?
Yeah, for what he gets here, it's if you've gotten this far, you already know the game is rigged, which I would argue Lucas has gotten this far, and I don't think he knows the game is rigged.
No.
But he's going to figure it out soon enough. But I did fall down a little Reddit rabbit hole when they kind of showed, I think, the bigger page that he looked in the previous episode of trying to decode it, and I'm quite certain Reddit has already decoded it. And because I've read the books, I've read what Reddit figured out, and it seems like it's pretty spot on. I'm not going to spoil it or read anything here, but if you are interested, I'm sure we'll get that by the end of this season, what the whole message means. But it is kind of interesting that the internet is sleuthing and figuring all this out already.
Good job, internet. Good job. I didn't find this message at all satisfying. This is just like, okay, we know there's a game being played behind the game, so, but if it leads to something else, wonderful. I will wait to find out. I will not be on Reddit unless it's arguing politics, because that's what Reddit's for. And also asking people who my doppelganger is. All right. And the last conversation to touch on is Sims running into Lucas and explaining to him that Bernard's just using him, and as soon as he's done with you, he'll throw you back to the mines. And Lucas is like, the mines aren't actually real, right? And Sims is like, quiet, you're going to need a friend, and you've got a friend in me. And then that Toy Story song starts playing.
Oh, man, speaking of that, we totally missed the opportunity to say someone's poisoned the water hole.
Oh, we'll put it, Jimmy. Put that back in post, and you know where that joke goes. You'll figure it out.
Sims does do he's like, hey, don't believe in Bernard, which is fair, and you got a friend in me, but then threatens his mother that's in hospice. I don't get why Sims threatens him at the end.
This is in that book where it's like we learned everything we need to know in kindergarten. This is how you make friends. The first thing you do is tell them why the person you're already friends with is bad, so you insult that person's friends. So that's where you
Step
start.
one.
And then you tell them that they have a friend in you, and you maybe sing in a weird voice. What is that guy's name that sings that song? And then the third thing you do is threaten that person's mother. And that's how you make friends, Tom. And Sims did it right by the book. He did a great job.
He nailed it.
Let's go to Silo 17. The only silo we truly care about, because it's, it's filled with one character we care about, and then one that's a ghost now, I guess. So she's come out of the water. She does get the bends. We know that because her ear hurts, and then she's punching her hip, and there's the evidence of a murder. She grabs the hatchet, which is very smart.
Smart.
Great book series, by the way, if you've got kids that are, 10, 11, 12. The Hatchet's a great book. And in order to stop the bends, after doing a little bit of investigating and the pain getting too bad, she jumps back in the water. Tom, if I was better at my job, I would go see whether or not this actually, solves it. But
Solo mentioned this. He talked about you need to stay, and if you do get out, you can go back in. So they clearly reference this as this is what she's got to do. My big problem with all this, seeing the bends hit her with the ear ringing and joint damage or whatever, it's just terrifying and frightening if this is exactly how it will hit somebody. I kind of assumed it was the second you got out of water you felt all this, but it kind of was a little bit slow. But my problem with all of this is why? Why did we do any of this? Why did we need to explain the bends? Because the only thing this did was put her back in the water without any sort of issues, no problems. She's just in the water for a little bit and comes out later. Like if this was about the people that took out Solo needed more time to prepare or do something, maybe there's a reason for it. But otherwise, I don't understand the writing logic of putting this whole Ben sequence in.
Well, it feels like maybe they were a little bit lean and they needed a little bit more meat on that bone. So they're like, we're going to have her come out of the water and then go back into the water and then come back out of the water. And when she comes back out of the water, her hair is going to be cut again. So we're going to bring her back up. That's at this point, Juliet's got to like look at the camera and be like, again? And then the bubbles come out of her mouth. She gets up and a gentleman with a flashlight and armor then shoots her with a bow. We find out it's more than one person, but in this moment it just looks like one dude with a, I don't know. She gets bowed by an arrow, essentially.
Yes. And he even mentions like, hey, we killed Solo and warned her to get away. And even when we get at the end, like the person that I guess was holding on to the bow purposely winged her in the shoulders, like wasn't trying to kill her per se. So I'm wondering if they actually did kill Solo. But I do like the little trickery.
I'm thoroughly convinced no one can be that accurate with a bow and arrow. Having fired one in my life, I'm pretty sure you're just trying to hit something the size of a barn door, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Anything more precise than that is just magic and luck.
Mm-hmm.
We get to watch Juliet do some medical treatment. Tom, would you rather watch Lucas solve riddles or Juliet do medical procedures on herself? You've got a 45-minute show of just those things. What would you rather do?
Not a whole lot happened in this whole sequence outside of her patching up herself, but this was very exciting stuff.
Incredible. All right. We find out that she got attacked by Discount Hunger Games. That's what I wrote in the outline. I must have been very proud when I wrote that. It's like you got Katniss, you've got PETA. I can't believe I remember that character's name off the top of my head. And so Solo wasn't so solo in his silo. No mo, right?
Yes. And the question is like, did Solo know there were other people here? If he did, why didn't he say anything? Did he think he was just seeing ghosts and maybe these people existed here for a while? We don't really know. I do appreciate Juliet doing her best kind of Captain America, where she's got the big shield and baton or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I like this sequence. This is true to the books. There were more people in the silo, and I'm excited to see how this kind of plays out.
So you lied to us this whole time when we called him Solo. You knew he wasn't Solo. You, sir, are a liar and a thief.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not a thief. I only lied about being a thief.
Danny Ocean over here. So slick. All right.
But like you mentioned at the top of the thing, like looking at our outline for Silo 17, I mean, these are all super quick cuts to this silo, and all of Rebecca Ferguson is maybe 4 minutes of screen time, if that, because it's like, okay, she gets out of the water, she grabs the hatchet. Oh, she's got her ears ringing. Okay, we're going to cut back to 18 and then cut back here, and oh, she's going back in the water. Cut back. Oh, she's coming out of the water. She gets shot. Oh, leave. Come back. She's getting treatment. Oh, come back. She's getting Hunger Gamed. Like, I just felt so much of this stuff would have been better served if you just spent a lot of these scenes and sequences working with this character and not these quick cuts. It's just nowhere near satisfying.
Right. No, I agree. I'm interested to see how they land this season's plane and who makes it out alive and what our actual long-term conflicts are. I'm excited to meet these young folks and their bows and arrows and their hockey helmets. We will be back for episode 9, which is the penultimate episode. And I guess during that episode, we will both guess at who the killer is. And also who the victim is, because traditionally our shows have victims and murderers, and this one does not. Everyone seems to be murdering everyone.
Yep, free fall.
But you can reach us at teambingepodcast@gmail.com. You can follow us on Spotify, rate and review on Apple. Tom, what did I miss?
Yes, follow us on the socials, Twitter, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, whichever your social of choice is, at Team Binge or at Team Binge Podcast. Let us know what you think of this episode and the show. Like I said, we dog on it a little bit. I still enjoy this show. It's better than a lot of the stuff out there, but it definitely hasn't landed quite as well as season 1 has. So, but I'm excited for the conclusion and see where they kind of end it.
Yeah, I agree. I wonder if the filming of the final Mission Impossible has taken Rebecca Ferguson from this show, and they've had to kind of dance around that a little bit.
Is she even in the last one?
I think so. I'm pretty sure she's swimming in one of the previews, which tracks because she does quite a bit of swimming in the silo.
She does.
So she probably shot it all on one day. When you watch the last Mission Impossible and you watch her swimming, now all you'll be thinking about is her getting the bends in silo.
Yeah. Look at those sweet arm tattoos.
That's right. That's right. All right. For Team Binge, I have been Julian.
And I have been Tom. Until next week, everybody.